Thank you for joining us today. Welcome to Project 31's YouTube channel. I'm Jennifer Herod, the breast nurse navigator with Project 31, and
I'm Jane Wilson, CFO and kind of OG support group person.
yes. Well, today we're going to be talking about conquering the fear of recurrence, because that's a real thing.
It is a real thing. It is a real thing.
Yeah, I think so much of the time we think, oh, everything's just going to return back to normal. We're going to be back to living our lives once we're done. And there's this anxiety and fear that we have that we don't anticipate.
Well, and for one thing, they want to see you so much. There's so much follow-up. And I feel like if they would just let you go, you might be able to kind of get it out of your mind for a minute. But I know for me, it was like every 3 months I went for a long time. Yes. Then I went every 6 months for a long time. Then I went every year for a long time. And you just can't seem to kind of get away from being inspected.
Exactly.
And that was, I hate the word triggering. I really do hate that word. But walking in that clinic, you just like, I want to be anywhere else but right here, right now.
Right, right. And that's a good point that you bring up, is it's triggering. I mean, so, you have to think of what are ways to kind of face this anxiety and this fear that we have. Because I know for myself and probably for a lot of people, you start thinking, oh gosh, I have a pain.
Right.
Oh, what is that? Is it cancer? When is it going to come back? Is it going to come back?
Right.
So I think.
No, I thought everything was some new something.
Right.
Or some new cancer, some new side effect from chemo, some new side effect from the drugs I had taken or was on, it just messes with your head. It's just such a new experience for me because I wasn't ever one of those people who'd had a whole lot of health issues prior to cancer. So this was all new to me.
Right.
And so, yeah, everything was a new potential problem or cancer.
And I think that's, I think the number one thing most people have to remember is that's real. That's a normal, not normal, but that's a common thing that people have. They say that 30 to 70% of women have the fear of recurrence after cancer. So.
Well, and rightly so, because there's a lot of times that statistically you might have a recurrence, right?
Right.
I mean, for me, it was a very high statistical probability that it would come back. Okay. To the point that they wanted to do both breasts and all that, and I was just like, yikes, So I didn't do some of the things that might have led to better statistics.
Right.
So there's that decision too, right?
Yes.
You got to live with that decision too. All of those decisions matter, but I, on purpose, didn't want them to take both breasts. Right. So that made my statistics be a little higher for recurrence, right?
Well, then I think it's did I do the right thing?
Right.
You're always questioning yourself. Oh, should I have done this? And you can't do that, even though you do think that.
Yeah.
You just have to kind of let that go at some point.
You do. You have to be confident that the decision you made was the right decision at the right time, right?
Right decision for you
at that time. Yeah. And if you had more information or hindsight, all of that, maybe you would do it different. But we have one of our leaders who didn't do chemo because she had some other issues that kind of precluded her from doing chemo.
Right.
You got to let that go. You can't just agonize over the fact that chemo wasn't a good option for you.
Right.
And sit and worry the rest of your life that it's going to come back.
Exactly.
It either is going to or it isn't going to. Worry honestly doesn't help that any or change it, right?
So let's talk about kind of those triggering things.
Well, definitely follow-up visits.
Yes, scan-xiety is real.
It is real. Any MRI I've ever had, I'm just sitting there going, what if they find something? What if they find something? I don't think they're going to find anything. I mean, I didn't walk in there thinking they're going to find anything. But you have a long time to lay there on that bed and worry.
And it just triggers that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, anytime you hear of a family member or a friend that's been diagnosed, it's still that trigger of, I remember when I was diagnosed, am I going to have to go through this again?
Right.
So what are some ways that you help to kind of calm yourself when you're going through that either scan-xiety what do you do for that?
So in the moment, like let's talk about MRIs in particular, because I have to do those still every couple of years.
Right.
So it's not constant, but it is every couple of years. And I will say the further out I am, the less, triggered I am by it.
Right.
But for me, I try to go in a calm frame of mind. Hopefully I have slept well the night before. Right? Like I try to sort of pamper myself before going to those kinds of big events. I try to make sure I've slept well, that I've eaten well, that I've done all those, that I haven't had too much caffeine, that I haven't done some of those things to kind of upset my system a little bit. For the MRI, I tried one time to do it without the Valium because I needed to go to work after, because I'm like, that Valium doesn't even really help that much, whatever. I got this. Oh yeah, no, take the Valium. Get somebody to drive you and take the Valium. Because it's such a long, you're laying there a long time.
Right.
If it were just 10 minutes, of course you don't need it. But the 45 minutes of listening to that thing pound, and, it's too much. Anyway, take the Valium. If they'll let you listen to music or something distracting, like a podcast, now not like a murder podcast, like listen to something, uplifting and good. But something distracting that will engage your mind, something fun, or if you can find, like even like comedy or something, just something to take you out of what your mind is doing at that moment that your body's laying on that bed. That's helpful for me. Music is real good for me. That'll take me out of that headspace quickly. I have to be careful with music though, because I'll start to dance on the table. And they always yell at me because of that.
Ma'am, please stop dancing.
Exactly. So that's why I say podcasts. Those are a little better. But again, if they're funny, you can't laugh, right? So you're trying to stifle that. So anyway, that's just because I've done so many MRIs. I know what works and doesn't work for me. But those kinds of things really help. And I do think having a friend take you and be there when it's over, whether that's your husband or just a girlfriend or whatever, I think that's good. And if you can, what I've found is if you can make a day, maybe not even a day of it, if you can make it a moment, so then go have lunch, right?
That's a great idea.
Like kind of pull you out of that headspace, because you're going to want to worry about it. And what if they find something? Because they don't give you the results right away.
And take your mind off of it.
Exactly. So if you can go have lunch or go do something fun after it.
That's a good idea.
I'm very easily distracted. So
that's a good thing.
It can't be a good thing, right? So I would say all of those work for me when it comes to scans and CT scans or MRIs or whatever. It's funny because even after all these years, my doctor, my oncologist has told me often, I could have let you go by now. I don't need to follow up with you. But he likes, I'm a good outcome. They don't always have good outcomes. So I think he does it as much for him as he does for me. And I told him I like the fact that somebody's checking my blood work, right?
Definitely.
But every time I go in, my blood pressure's elevated. And it's just a little bit of white coat syndrome. And it just is. Yeah. And so I know that. And so they'll be like, your blood pressure's up. Yeah, I know. I love y'all, but I know. You make me nervous. You just make me nervous.
And I think for some people, even prayer can help you get through that time.
Absolutely.
Kind of some mindfulness, some breathing techniques.
Breathing techniques are really good.
Those help me.
They do.
And like you said, talking. So talking with others, maybe in a support group or with your friends or family, that I have this fear, and kind of just getting it out there and acknowledging it and not ignoring it.
Exactly.
And even talking to a counselor if you need to.
Yeah, if it's serious enough, or if you're really newly diagnosed and these are all still new events for you, you're not 20-something years out, I would cry walking into the hospital. Like I would pull up in the car in the parking lot and just sit there and bawl. So and I'm a pretty tough cookie. Like I'm not like that person normally, but it was stressful. So
Well,
acknowledging that stress is not a bad thing.
no, yeah, just acknowledge it. Call it what it is. Don't try to let it overrun your life.
Exactly.
And I think, too, having control over that fear and having control over what are things you can do to try to prevent a cancer recurrence.
Right.
Such as, let's stop smoking. Let's
Lose a pound or two.
Exactly. Reduce our amount of alcohol that we're drinking.
Go to your doctor's appointments. Don't
Yes.
skip them.
Do your follow-ups. Exercise. Get out there and walk. 150 minutes a week is what they recommend.
Which is really not that much, honestly. You can get that in.
Yeah. And, I think also just being aware of your body. And if you notice anything that's
Right.
different, abnormal, tell your doctor.
Right.
And diet, nutrition can make a huge difference as well.
Sure. Absolutely.
So,
I know lately I've been doing, not because of cancer, but because my cholesterol numbers have been a little higher than I want them to be, I've been doing intermittent fasting.
oh yeah.
And there's a lot of research out there about intermittent fasting in breast cancer patients.
I've heard that.
Yeah, I mean, it's fascinating, really. We'll have to do a whole video on that.
That would be interesting, yes.
But there's studies out there about how diet and nutrition impact your current cancer diagnosis and any subsequent potential diagnosis.
So I think that gives you back the control because cancer takes away so much. It takes away our control over our lives and what we thought our lives were going to be or our hair.
Yeah.
So having some way to take back that control, I think is extremely helpful.
It's huge.
So just focus on the things that we can control.
Right.
And let go of the things that we can't.
Right. I know for a few of my visits to see, because you're sitting in that waiting room with nothing to do. There's no good magazines, you can only scroll the internet so long. Sometimes I would take like a gratitude journal.
Oh, that's a great idea.
And I would sit and try to write the things that I was thankful for that day.
Yes.
That didn't have anything to do with cancer, right? I'm
Right.
thankful for whatever, the weather, that my car didn't break down on the way, that I, have plenty of groceries in the house, whatever the things are, And sort of as you sit and look around at the people who are in the throes of their cancer journey, too thankful that you're not back in that place.
Right.
Right? That you've moved on, even if it's just a little bit, even if you're just 3 or 6 months down the road, that it's not day one again for you.
Right.
I was thankful for that because I didn't want to be there. At least I felt like I had moved a little.
Right. Yeah, you're further along that journey of breast cancer treatment.
Exactly. And I tried to be grateful for that.
Yes,
Some days were easier than others.
I get it. Some days you're just thankful for that warm cup of coffee. Some days
you're just thankful the day's over.
Right. Amen. Amen.
Right. But trying to muster up some little bit of gratitude for me kind of would help change my mindset a little bit and ease that anxiety somewhat. And like you said, prayer and meditation were huge for me.
Yes, me
Huge.
too. Me too. They really talk about the mind, body, and helping to control some of your fear and anxiety. So some of those ways that they recommend would be yoga, mindfulness.
Right. Breathing.
Breathing, yes. Cognitive behavior skills that counselors can teach you.
Right. Those are, if you can adapt that into your life and have somebody who's really good at teaching you that because people do have, again, the trigger word, people do have triggers that if they, in the moment, realize that, oh, this is causing me a great deal of anxiety, then they can have behavioral therapies planned, already banked. They're in my pocket. I'm ready to use them,
And that's the best thing, to have those planned out for that fear, that trigger, that anxiety.
Yeah. My daughter and I were talking about anxiety the other day. She's a college professor, and so all of her students are filled with anxiety about life. They're just in that part of life where everything's just overwhelming. And I remember being a young adult and, life is hard at that point, and I think with COVID, everything's even worse. But we were talking about anxiety and a point in her life when she kind of faced some great deal of anxiety. And it was like, what did we do to overcome it? And we did all of these things. We acknowledged it. We said, yeah, you're anxious about whatever band tryout this week. Yeah, it's stressful. What are you going to do about it?
Right.
You're going to practice. You're going to do all the things. You're going to get ready. You're going to show up. You're going to do your thing, right? Mm-hmm. And so I think just saying, yeah, this is stressful and it sucks and I shouldn't have to be doing this. And I wish I weren't doing this. That's all fine. But then you got to take the next step and say, but I'm a big girl and what can I do to alleviate this? I can't let it just keep me from getting out of the house and living.
Yeah, you still have to, live your life. Cancer can take away some things, but it can't take away the joy from living your life.
And even,
you can't let it.
No, you cannot. And we have watched together people who lived with cancer up to their last moment.
Yes.
Joyfully, right?
Living their best life.
Living their best life. And so even if today is the only day you have, live it to the full. Enjoy today. Nobody's promised tomorrow.
Right.
And it may not be cancer that takes us out, right?
Exactly.
But I mean, just nobody's promised tomorrow. But only thing you have control over is how you react to things.
Exactly.
I mean, they're going to throw at you what they throw at you. And if you get cancer again, and it may not be breast cancer, I mean, you could get all kinds of things, right? But if you get it again, you've got to still figure out, you can't just crawl in a hole and pull the hole in after you, right?
Right. There's some days you want to, but you just have to find out whatever you need to do to keep you going.
Right.
Whether it be music or art therapy or exercise.
Or calling a friend and,
support groups.
Yep, support groups.
Where they can say, I get it, it sucks. But yeah, I think that's...
But fear of recurrence is a real thing. I think if you're spending too much time thinking about it, you probably should reach out to a counselor or a therapist about it. Because if it truly is overtaking your life where that's all you can think about, that's not a healthy place. But even all these years out, I still wonder, is that a thing? Like, I feel weird. That's a weird sensation. What is that?
Yeah.
And I think that's normal.
I think everyone copes and handles fear of recurrence, anxiety differently. But I think the main thing they need to realize is you're not alone.
No.
You're not alone in this feeling. And there's others that are going through it, here to talk about it as well.
And try to find a healthy way to cope with it, not an unhealthy. Don't, eat your feelings. Don't drink your feelings. Don't,
My gallon of ice cream isn't good, huh?
It is good. Just in a different way. Not good for you. Oh, Lord. The ways we cope, right?
Yes. Yeah. I think before I had my mastectomy and was dealing with everything, I was running.
Yeah.
So I took up, by golly, I'm going to run a marathon just to get this stress out. So yeah, everybody copes in different ways.
They do. And sometimes it looks healthier.
Yeah. Then
may not be healthier,
True.
but it looks healthier. So sometimes we have more acceptable behavior coping mechanisms, Exactly. But yeah, if you find that you're not happy with the way you're coping, reach out to someone who can help, a therapist, a counselor.
Definitely.
Yeah, definitely. But bring it up in support group. We'll point you in the right direction too.
So thank you for joining us today. Don't forget, if you like our podcast, be sure to like it. We appreciate all the thumbs up. We appreciate it. Have a great day.